Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kathy Neifeld with Agency One. It is Wednesday, June 24th, and we are thrilled to bring you today a phenomenal speaker on a topic that is near and dear to every advisor with whom we work: how to increase referrals and prospects before year end. Our speaker is Dan Allison, founder and president of Feedback Marketing Group. Dan is an expert at building a referral-based business. He has a background in clinical and behavioral psychology and has dedicated his career to understanding how to approach clients about referrals. Rather than pretend to know how to solve referral problems himself, Dan went to the real experts. He went to your clients. After years of focus groups and interviews asking clients why they don't refer us more and what we can do to address this referral challenge, Dan created Feedback Marketing Group. His consulting firm has helped thousands of professionals implement common sense concepts to bridge the gap between us and those who matter most in our business. He's a successful entrepreneur and started his first mental health company in his early 20s and used these referral concepts to build his firm from a small 5-employee firm to a large company employing hundreds of people, a company that he later sold for many millions of dollars. Dan is here today to talk to us about the concepts that are featured in a book that he wrote called How to Duplicate Clients, Attract Prospects, and Create Advocates Without Talking. Please help me welcome Dan Allison. Dan, take it away.
All right. Hey, Kathy, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be on the call. Everybody at Agency One for coordinating all this. You guys are top notch. So as Kathy said, my name is Dan Allison. I own the company called Feedback Marketing Group. We have been around right at 17 years now. I started the company back then. We have focused 100% of our time during that 17 years in the financial industry. And we have focused 100% of our time during that 17 years on this one topic. And that is trying to figure out how people who do what you guys do for a living, provide financial guidance, whether that's wealth management, life insurance, risk management planning, how can you take the clients that you've worked really hard to earn their trust and their respect in their business and turn that into more referral business? Now, everybody I know on this call, you get referrals throughout the year, but if you're like most advisors, you'd really like to show up to work and have more quality referrals predictably coming through the company that you operate. Now, all of you, I'm sure at some point have been through some kind of training about referrals. And normally when you look at this topic and you hear trainers talk about referrals, it's normally a sales trainer talking about here are the one-liners that maybe you should say to your clients at the end of a review. So you hear things like, I get paid in 2 ways. And one of those ways is I expect referrals from my clients, or, the greatest compliment that you could give me is a referral to your friends and family. All these things, these one-liners that I think most advisors who are professional, who work really hard to establish credibility with their existing clients, I think at the end of the day, they're not totally comfortable saying those kind of things. They seem a little bit desperate, a little bit needy, a little bit unprofessional, and ultimately might also make the client feel uncomfortable. Feedback Marketing Group, we have taken a very different approach to the topic. We have spent 17 years obsessed with the client's perspective of this topic. Why do they refer? Why do they not refer? How do they want you to engage them in a conversation like this? How do you need to serve them in a way that they want to refer and they feel compelled to refer? So essentially, we have studied the behavior of referring for 17 years. We have interviewed literally thousands of advisors' clients about this topic, face-to-face interviews, talking to them about why they refer, why they don't. We have interviewed everywhere in North America. Last year, we interviewed throughout Europe. Before COVID, we were over in Hong Kong, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney. We've been all over the world interviewing financial professionals, clients about this topic. And one generalization I want to make sure I get out before we dive into the weeds and some details. One thing we have learned over the years of interviewing is that most advisors, and I guarantee you the people on this call fall into the same category, you don't have a shortage of clients that are willing to refer. And what I mean by that is one of the questions I have asked every time I interview a client for the last 17 years, we ask, do you value what your advisor has done for you enough that you would confidently take the risk and recommend them to somebody who is incredibly important in your life? I wrote that question very specifically with two variables. Do you value the experience that you've had enough that you would confidently take the risk and recommend somebody very important to you? Because every single client defines what does value mean differently, and they all assign a different value to risk. What is the real risk if I confidently tell somebody who's important to me to go see Gonzalo or to go work with Kathy, and then it doesn't work out? That's a real risk, and every client that you work with defines those things differently. But what I find is whether we're in North America or Europe or Asia, it doesn't matter where we are, when we ask that question, do you value what the advisor does enough that you would even refer? About 9 out of 10, about 90% or north of that, tell us that they do in fact value their own experience enough that they would refer, which is great. That means you have a client who is willing to refer. So if I interview 100 clients and I come back to you and I say, great news, Gonzalo, interviewed 100 clients, these 90 told me that you are so awesome that they would take the risk and recommend you to somebody important to them. The problem becomes when Gonzalo looks at those 90 people, he's very quick to point out to me that that's awesome that they feel that way. Most of them have never done it. So it's cool that they say they're willing to. Most have never taken action on it. And guys, the one thing that I have found to be really universally true over 17 years is that we rarely find an advisor that has a shortage of clients that are willing to refer. We always find advisors who have a shortage of clients that are capable and effective at actually referring. Because when I drill down into my interviews a little more deeply and I ask simple questions, like if you were to define what a good referral would look like, what are the characteristics of a person that would be a good referral to Gonzalo? The clients can't answer it. When I ask the clients, hey, if you were to articulate to me why Gonzalo is unique or different from other advisors, how would you convey his value proposition? They can't do it. When I ask them, if you did take action and refer, what would you do? They tell me I would give Gonzalo's name and phone number to somebody, which is totally ineffective. So what we've learned is the secret to really creating a more consistent flow of referrals to your business is, number one, being able to identify who are the clients in the first place that are willing to refer. And we'll talk about exactly how do you do that. But after you've done that, how do you ensure that they possess the information that is necessary to be effective when they decide that somebody they care about does need help and they want to ensure Gonzalo is the person to provide that help? So before we get started, I want to start with a statistic here. There's a company out of Austin, Texas. They're global now, but their headquarters was originally Austin, called Dimensional Funds, DFA. So for about 10 years, DFA has been my largest corporate client. That we do a lot of work for them globally. And one of the things that we do with them is every year they put out a survey to clients, mass affluent and affluent clients. And this is not a survey where it's just click, 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 and you're done. The average client spends between an hour and 15 minutes completing this survey. So it is very robust. It is a time commitment from a client perspective. And the last year we wrote questions for them was 2017 and 18. We had nearly 20,000 people just in America, so 20,000 clients, mass affluent, affluent, respond. And there were questions about everything having to do with wealth management and financial planning. But one of the questions was, do you value what your advisor does enough that you would confidently take the risk and refer? 98% of the 20,000 said yes, affirmative. But what I found way more interesting, 51% of the respondents said that they had actually referred at least one new client to their advisor in just the past 12 months. 5 out of 10 people said they had referred one new person in 12 months. And the stats break down, if you're looking at your screen here, and if you're not, I know we're recording this for you to reference back, 24% of people said they had referred one new client to their advisor in the last 12 months. 14% said they had referred two new clients in the last 12 months. 7% said they had referred three. 3% said four new clients, and 3% said they had referred five or more new clients to their advisor in 12 months. So if you do the math on those stats, it implies that for every 100 clients you currently possess, you should receive about 96 referrals over a 12-month period, which is absolutely ridiculous. I've never met a firm in my life that comes close to those metrics. You wouldn't have a business development problem. You would have a staffing issue if you could grow at that clip. So you look at this study and you think, and the statistics year in and year out are very consistent. So you think, why, in a completely anonymous survey that people took an hour to an hour and 15 minutes to complete, completely double-blind, anonymous, why would they lie about something this simple? And guys, what we're going to talk about over the next 45 minutes is the fact that these clients are not lying. There is no shortage of clients who are willing to refer, and in fact, you don't have a shortage of clients that are trying to refer. They're just doing all the wrong things to ensure that person gets into your office and allows you to provide them the help that they need. And we'll talk about exactly why. So those stats are important for you to think about in your own business and utilize your own metrics. Say, okay, if you've got 200 clients, it means you probably got about 180 to 150, or I'm sorry, 180 to 185 that would definitely refer you. So we're going to dive into how do we take somebody who's willing and identify who they are, and then how do we make them capable of following through with what they're already willing to do. So I want to touch, though, really quickly. Kathy mentioned my background was originally clinical and behavioral psychology. So I owned a firm, and we had facilities for children who had schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe autism. And unfortunately, these children, their behavior was dangerous enough that they could not live at home. So they had to live in facilities where clinicians like myself and my staff knew how to manage very dangerous behavior. And unfortunately, there was a big need for that service. And my partner and I started with one location. We took out a $10,000 line of credit. And within 5 years, we had 70 locations and I think 550 employees roughly when we ultimately sold that company. Now, I don't tell you that to hope to impress you by the metrics. I tell you that because 100% of the growth of our operation came through referral. It came from the families that we served, telling other families about the work that we had done for them. You know, these families, very, very similar to your business, the kind of clients that you would love to duplicate, those very clients surround themselves with people like them. That's who's in their social circle, it's who they go to networking events with, it's who they spend their days around. Well, the families that I served often spent their weekends as part of support groups. You know, they went to charitable events to create awareness for autism or schizophrenia or whatever their family struggled with. So my partner and I knew that the only way to truly grow a company that was referral-based was to engage these clients in such a way that when they were out, they talked about us frequently, they talked about us effectively, and really conveyed what we did, and so effectively that the people on the other end of that conversation wanted to come see us. But we had one very important conversation that I want, again, guys, this is being recorded. And at the end of this, Gonzalo and his team and Kathy, the whole team at Agency One, has arranged for all of you to have access to a training center that I developed that is full of videos, scripts, structure for how do you implement all this stuff. It's normally a couple $100 to gain access and a monthly fee to retain access. It's going to cost everybody on this call $0. So they've secured passwords for everybody. We don't capture your information, so don't worry about any of that stuff. It's just to bring value to you guys so you can take this content and hopefully implement some of the strategies. So all of you on this call, you have that moment where a prospect has been in your office a few times and they decide to become a client. and you've done the work for them, whether it's a life insurance case or a financial plan, it doesn't matter. They have a moment where when they walk out that door, they are a client of your firm. And I had that same moment with my clients, but I had, for the last 5 minutes of the meeting, I said the same thing to every single family that I ever helped. I told them, hey, before you leave, I want to cover 3 objectives that I have for the relationship that we will have together. You know, you have entrusted our company with something very important. We want to make sure that we accomplish 3 things. Number 1 is we want to make sure that your experience with our company is so good that it would never cross your mind to utilize somebody else for what we do. I want the experience to be so good, it would never cross your mind to leave our firm. Now, guys on the call, that sounds like such a simple statement, but I can tell you a lot of times when I go into a financial planning firm, wealth management company, and I interview their clients, I will have advisors that tell me, look, I don't have a retention issue. We retain, 97% of our clients. And I say, fantastic. But then I go and I interview clients, and when I come back to the advisor, I tell them, you do have a retention issue. You are retaining a significant amount of marginally satisfied clients. They are not upset. They are not actively trying to replace you today, but their experience is not such that they feel compelled to rave about you or talk about you to other people. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're maybe at a 6 or a 7. And when I ask those clients, what are 8, 9, and 10? What are the things that could be done to enhance that experience? Almost always those things are doable by you. It's normally communication, how frequently you communicate, the kind of communication, how you make them feel important or don't feel important. You used to see them a lot and now you don't. So it's all these things, but most advisors don't have a process for gathering honest feedback from their most valuable clients. I don't mean surveys. I mean sitting down, blocking time, eyeball to eyeball with the client that you never want to lose, and having prepared questions to learn from their perspective about the experience that they have with your company. What are the things we're doing well? Where are we delivering value? What are the things we could do to improve the experience, the communication? We don't utilize our own clients typically as consultants to our own business to teach us about their own experience. So I always tell firms, it's great if I ask you what your value proposition is and you can rattle it off, that's awesome. But then when I go down to your client level and I ask them what your value proposition is, if they don't say the same things, it's not your true value proposition. The real value prop of a firm is what the clients say when they talk about you to other people. So the first thing I told my clients is, look, I want to make sure the experience is good enough you never think about leaving us. The problem is you're the only person qualified to truly teach me how do I do that. So if you're going to be a client of mine, I ask for a commitment that every 12 or 18 months, we'll do our review meetings. We'll sit down and do all the stuff where we talk about your program and that kind of thing. But I want your commitment that you're willing to block 20 or 30 minutes every 12 or 18 months. I'm going to come prepared to that meeting with questions on behalf of our company that we want to learn from all of our clients about their experience. So I'm going to ask you questions about where you feel we truly are delivering value, the positive elements of your experience. But more importantly, I'm going to ask you about actionable things we can do to enhance the experience that you currently have. And you have to feel comfortable talking to me about those things, or I can't deliver the experience you deserve. So I always told them on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're at a 7, we have to have the kind of relationship where you teach me what 8, 9, and 10 are so that our firm can focus on driving that experience up. So that was my number 1 objective. And guys, in an industry, in the mental health field, the average attrition was 60% in the first 3 years. So these families would move a child with schizophrenia into a facility where hopefully they live forever, because it's traumatic to move them out and bounce them around. They need stability. 6 out of 10 people pulled their child out of a facility within 3 years because the service in that industry was so bad. And in 5 years, my partner and I lost one client ever in 5 years. And unfortunately, we lost them because they passed away. And I attribute a lot of that loyalty to something that simple, which is simply we continually engaged our clients in the feedback process. We continually tried to learn from them what is important, and we utilized them the same way you would utilize a consultant to teach us about our value proposition and how to make it better, okay? That was number one. Number two, if you were in the room with me right now, all of the advisors on this call, I would ask you how many of you have ever had a client utilize another advisor for something that you could have helped them with? And every hand in the room would go up. And I would ask you, when your client came in and told you that they got that product or that service somewhere else, and you asked them, hey, why didn't you come to us for that? What would they say? And everybody would in unison say, I didn't know you did that. One thing I've learned about your industry, especially the more holistic or comprehensive you are in nature, the less your clients actually understand all the capabilities of your firm. So for instance, if I were to interview a wealth management or financial planning owner, I would ask them to write me a comprehensive list of all the services available through the firm. And I'd give them about 20 minutes. I would come back. And on average, a wealth management operation will list about 10 services. So I'll see investment management, life insurance, disability insurance, college planning, estate planning, a laundry list of things. But then when I go down to the client level, the clients of that exact same firm, and I ask the clients, write me a comprehensive list of all the things that are available through this firm, the average client can list 2 services. So if you think about that problem, advisor lists 10, client lists 2. That means there's a discrepancy of about 80% that the client does not even understand that you're capable of providing. So number one, if they ever need help in that area, they don't even think about your firm. Number two, it eliminates 80% of the referrals that they could provide to the firm when they're having interactions with somebody who needs help in an area that maybe they don't perceive you as being helpful in. So a lot of finance companies talk about cross-sell. You know, you got to cross-sell multiple product lines. And we find the issue is not cross-selling, but cross-education. Most advisors do not have a process for how do we effectively and continually re-educate our existing client base to ensure that they're fully aware of all the things that we do, even the things that they may never need, they still have to be aware that we provide in case somebody they care about needs to help. Well, in the mental health field, we did the same thing. We had comprehensive behavioral management. So we had facilities, but we also had marital counseling and drug and alcohol counseling and all these ancillary services. And I didn't want my clients to use me for one thing and then go use a competitor for another service that I could have provided simply because I had done a poor job of educating them about all the things that we do. So I told my clients, my second objective is not only do I want your experience to be so good that you don't leave, I want to make sure that you experience the most value from our firm and you use us for all of the different services that you might need someday. Today, you might not need certain things that we do. In 9 months from now, your life can completely change. Your needs can completely change. And you may need help in some of these other areas. And I don't want you to not get help because you don't know these things are here for you. So I told them every 12 or 18 months, when I sit you down and I get feedback from you, I'm also going to block a little bit of time to re-educate you about our value proposition and all the services that we provide, even the ones that I know you will never need. And I told them we do that because I never want you to have a problem, a need, a concern that doesn't get addressed because you don't even know we do those things. That's just bad client service. But also people that you care about may be different than you, but they may need help. And I need you to understand that we are here for them and what we can provide to them. So in advance, when they became a client, I got permission to continually re-educate. And it was amazing how many additional services we were able to deliver to clients simply because they forgot we did it. When I re-educated them, the timing was right. They had just gone through an issue or a problem or had a concern. And boom, we got another line of service with that client, making them more profitable and stickier simply because we continually re-educate, re-educate, re-educate. So that was number two. Finally, and by the way, guys, I know I'm talking through a lot of stuff. I normally 3 to 4 hour workshop, so I'm trying to just get as much content as I can in one call. I told them my third objective is that I want your experience to be so good with our firm that not only do you not want to leave, but you want other people to get our help. I want the experience to be so good that you would want to tell another family, look, I work with Dan's firm and you should work with that firm also. But I understand the topic, referring, can be pretty uncomfortable for certain people. And I was just honest with them. I told them on one hand, every time I saw you, I could say, hey, who do you know? Who do you know? Do you know anybody? Can you give me names? I will not do that. It's not comfortable for me, and it's for you, it's probably not comfortable either. But I told them, I've learned on the other hand that if I'm very passive about it and I don't talk to my own clients about it, you may genuinely know somebody who deserves and needs help and not have absolute clarity that we are here to help, that we have capacity to help, that they are the right person for us to help. And that's bad too, because if you don't have that clarity, somebody who needs help and deserves it may not get it. So I simply asked every client I have ever worked with this question. I said, having said that, how can I approach you, if at all, about that topic, about referrals, every now and then in a way that will be comfortable for you and will never make you uncomfortable and compromise this relationship that we're building? So if you think about, guys, what I just said, notice that none of what I just said, I need your help building my business. I want you to help grow my help me. None of it was about that. It was about being helpful to you and people you may care about. And it was honest that if I don't talk about this, I'll have a whole client base that lacks clarity around whether or not we even want to help other people. And that's bad, but I acknowledge the topic for some people is uncomfortable. So for you, how do I approach it, if at all, in a way that's going to be comfortable? And listen to the clients. Here's what's going to happen. 8 or 9 out of 10 of your clients are going to have a conversation with you. They're going to say, I don't know, just bring it up. Just talk to me about it. Like, what kind of people are you guys trying to help? And it turns into this conversation about being helpful. You're not asking them for referrals or for names or any of that stuff. You're simply asking, in the future of our relationship, should you want to be helpful to other people, how do I have that conversation with you? And you're going to gain confidence from them that going forward, it does not have to be a topic that's awkward for anybody. You can have the conversation with them all the time. And you know, I call those people gold mines when it comes to referrals. You know you can have that conversation. But you're also going to have 1 or 2 out of 10 that tell you, for me, Gonzalo, referring is not something real comfortable. I'm kind of private about my child with schizophrenia. I don't talk about money with people, whatever it is. It's really not a topic that's real comfortable for me. And that's when you say perfect. I mean, that's why I asked the question. I don't want to bring up something uncomfortable for any client, but I also don't want to be so passive that our own clients don't know that we're helping other people. So for us, that conversation will not come up. I called those people landmines when it comes to referring. Doesn't mean they're a bad client. Just means that when it comes to referring, that is a conversation I should never bring up because it makes them uncomfortable. And I think the secret, guys, to growing a really solid referral-based business, no matter what industry you're in, is identifying your gold mines with absolute clarity. Having the conversation I just had can absolutely open up a million conversations about business development, but then being effective at embracing those gold mines on an ongoing basis, because that elephant is out of the room. There's no elephant ever in the room, but those 10 or 20% being able to acknowledge, don't worry about objection handling. Why do they feel that way? You didn't make them that way. They also don't recommend movies and restaurants. It's a behavior that they're not really comfortable with. And I find that the best firms that grow a heck of a referral-based business know how to identify gold mines, embrace the gold mines, and then make those gold mines capable of being good referral sources, and acknowledge those landmines and respect them. Still want to retain them. I still want their experience to be great. I just know at the end of a meeting or whenever I am not going to hit the topic of referrals head on. So that is one conversation. And again, the material that you're going to get access to, I call this new client intake language, which means that's a conversation I would recommend all of you have with every single client that you have from now on when they become a client. So when they're new, because what it does, number one, it tees up that you're going to ask for feedback in the next 12 or 18 months after they've been a client for a while. Number two, most of your clients come to you because they need a service or a product or a solution. It tees up that you're going to continually re-educate them on all the other things that are available. So that's not a surprise in the future. And then finally, it allows you immediately to know gold mine, landmine, and embrace those gold mines effectively, respect the landmines, so that for the entirety of that relationship, there's no question where they fall in that category. So I built that company, and I'll go a little bit quicker here on this stuff. We built that company. I mentioned that we had sold it once we hit 70 locations, and my partner retired. I was 27, I think, at the time, so I wasn't going to retire, but I did have a 5-year non-compete clause. And nationwide, in any way, shape, or form, I could not engage in the mental health or clinical psychology industries unless I went to work for the company who had bought my firm, which I was not going to do. So I ended up, and I went out and invested in a variety of different companies. But one of them was a financial operation, and financial advisors were the client of that firm. So it was the first time I really got to interact with people who do what you guys do for a living on the business side of it. I'd been a client of advisors, but I'd never seen what is it like to be an advisor to try to grow a business, all the seminars and radio shows, and how do you talk about referrals and client appreciation events. I'd never seen all that. But the one thing I saw very quickly, guys, was most advisors that I work with, when I ask, if you could only grow your company one way, what would the one way be? Do you want to do seminars? Do you want to? And almost every advisor I ever worked with said referral. If I could just focus on serving my clients and have a steady stream of quality, good referrals coming through the door, that would be the ideal business. So I would ask every advisor, and I'd ask you guys to think about this for your business. I would ask, how many clients do you currently have? And they would say, 300. And I would say, how many referrals did you get last year from those 300? And they would normally tell me 10, 15, whatever it was. And I would ask them, why do you think that 285 people trusted you with such an important decision? What they trust all of you on this call with is not a small choice. It's a big choice. They're trusting you with everything they hope happens in their financial life, everything they hope never happens, on the risk side. It's a big deal. But I would ask, why do you think 285 people trusted you with that choice and told nobody about you in the last 12 months? And no advisor could answer that question for me. So guys, 17 years ago, I decided I was going to go out and I was going to try to learn from the clients why that is. Why do you choose these people and then not refer them to other people? So I started to conduct focus groups, interviews, and like I said, now over the years, it evolved into the feedback marketing group. Now at this point, we've interviewed thousands of people. But everybody I interview, I ask this question first. I explain why they were chosen to be interviewed and how important of a client they are to their advisor and all those things. And I list an agenda of things I want to learn. But I say I want to get kind of the awkward question out of the way first. And that question is, why don't you refer your advisor to more people? And I tell them that when I ask your advisor for a list of clients for me to interview, you have to meet 2 criteria. I told your advisor I want to talk to any client that they would hate to lose as a client. And then I want to talk to any client that they would love to clone as a client. That's, I don't know anything about your financial situation, don't know your assets, none of my business. 2 criterion qualified you to be on the interview list. They would hate to lose you as a client, but absolutely love to clone you. So when they think of an ideal business, it's waking up, looking at their calendar and having a full calendar of people like you to go see. And obviously the clients were really flattered and thought that was pretty cool. But then I would ask, so the awkward question is, why don't you refer your advisor to more people? They feel that way about you. you're surrounded by people like you. What stops you from doing that? The number one response, and again, in the training center, we go into depth in all these things. So I'd encourage you, there's like a 2.5, 3-hour video in there amongst a lot of other things. But the number one response, and I would say it's about 60%, tell me in some way, shape, or form that their advisor doesn't even ask about it, doesn't talk about it. Now, when I go back to the advisor, typically they tell me, that's not true, I do too, ask. And when I say, okay, ask me for referrals, let me hear what that sounds like, most advisors say stuff like, hey, keep me in mind if you know anybody who needs our help, or let me know if you know anybody who could benefit from our service. Almost anytime an advisor shows me their method of asking, it ends with a period and not a question mark. They're not even asking questions, they're making statements. Hey, keep me in mind if you know anybody who needs my help, period, right? So these clients aren't even registering that they're being asked about referrals. And it's about 60% of the people, their first response. But then I ask those clients, if you were asked about referrals by Gonzalo, do you even value what he's done for you enough that you would be inclined to refer, take that risk? And that's where I hear 8 to 9 out of 10 say yes. Oh, absolutely, I value what he does. So then I ask them, if I were Gonzalo and I were to ask you right now to refer me to somebody, how would you respond to Gonzalo? And they almost always say, right now I don't know anybody who needs help. I mean, I would, but right now I don't know anyone. But I asked them a follow-up question, which is so critical, guys, to think about. I asked them, let's take a step backwards, and I want you to define for me, who would that be in the first place? So if you and I were to walk into a crowded room, we could get to know everybody in the room, everything about them, what they do for a living, family situation, what's going on in their life, the kind of things that you know about your best friends. We could get to know these people. We could pull anybody out of that room, and we could hand them to Gonzalo as an ideal new client. The kind of client that would say, thank God I met Gonzalo, and the kind of client that Gonzalo would say, this is an ideal referral. Define for me in a crowded room, who are you and I looking for? And define it in a way that allows me to go pick the people out. And when I ask the clients that simple question, they can almost never answer it. They look at me and they say, well, I guess when you put it that way, I'm not totally sure what an ideal client would look like, or, what a good referral would look like. And I tell them, so it's really not fair to say you don't know anybody who needs help. You may be interacting with somebody daily that would be ideal to meet Gonzalo and for Gonzalo to meet, and your flag's not even going up to say this is somebody who'd be ideal to meet Gonzalo. Is that fair? And they almost always say, yeah, I guess when you put it that way, that's probably true. So think about that, guys. Most advisors that I ask, hey, that same question, crowded room, I'm going to go find you clients. Who am I looking for? A lot of the advisors can't even define it. Well, if you can't define it, you made it impossible for your clients to go find it. But the firms that can define it, that say, here's exactly who we want to work with, when I say, have you shared that information clearly and consistently with your own client base? Most of them do not. And it's a huge issue. Third thing, that when I talk to clients about why they don't refer, they don't understand two different things that are critical. Number one, when I ask them, hey, why is Gonzalo's firm or Gonzalo, why are they different from other advisors within 10 miles of here? Within 10 miles of here, there's a bunch of people that say they do what Gonzalo does or the firm does. But why are they different? If you had to explain to me as a friend of yours why they're unique and different, what would you say? Most clients just absolutely murder the explanation of the value proposition. And it's normally because they haven't heard it since they were a prospect. We tell them how unique and valuable we are and our process and all that. And that's awesome. We tell them, and then they say, yes, I'm going to become a client. And we don't continually repeat that story to them. So as a result, they can't share the story to the marketplace. But the second thing is when I ask them to write me a list of all the services that the firm can provide, that's where they can typically list 20%, which immediately derails their ability to be a really effective referral source. Even if Gonzalo did bring it up, they're not going to be good at doing that. Fourth most common thing that I hear from clients, they tell me they do refer all the time. Why don't you refer Gonzalo? Oh, I do all the time. Yeah, I give his name out to everybody all the time. Then I go to Gonzalo and say, hey, how many referrals you get from this client right here? And he'll say, I don't think I've ever gotten any. So you got client who thinks they're making a referral. You got Gonzalo who's never seen one. And what's broken there is that clients think giving out their advisor's name and number is actually a referral. And they have no clue how totally ineffective that is at getting that person they care about the help that they need. In fact, 81% of the people in the Dimensional Fund study said that their primary method of referring, 81% said they give out their advisor's name and contact information, not knowing that it's completely ineffective. So real quick, guys, I want to give you, and again, you got the recording of this. If you've ever heard a client say, I gave your name out, or a lawyer say, hey, I gave your name to one of my clients, or a CPA, if I were you, I would master this language right here because it will completely turn around that conversation. Happened to me my whole life in the mental health field. It happens as a public speaker and a consultant. It happens in all the companies I've been involved with. People will say, hey, Dan, I gave your name to somebody the other day. They're going to be calling you. Most advisors say, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. But they know I'm probably not going to meet that person. So what I tell people is, hey, I appreciate that very much, but can we chat about it for a second? Can we talk about it for a second? And they always say yes. And I say, I'm assuming that you did that because somebody you know, somebody you care about, you think they could probably use some help or some guidance. Is that accurate? And 100 out of 100 people not only say yes, but then they typically elaborate. So they'll say, yeah, you know, we were at dinner the other night. They said this, I told them that, told them how great you are. So I gave them your information to reach out. And I simply said, here's the problem. Those people do not know and trust me the way that you do. As a result, reaching out to us can be a little bit intimidating, I think, for some people. As a result, very few people reach out. And as a result, they almost never get the help they deserve. So if your objective, like what you were trying to accomplish, is to be helpful to them, can we simply talk through a method of introduction that will increase the likelihood they get help, but that will be comfortable for you and comfortable for them? So it could be as simple as coffee or lunch. You could be there, you could not be there. It could be an email where everybody's CC'd on something soft and comfortable to make an introduction, but that we know is going to increase the likelihood they get the help they need. And if you can just take that one conversation and have it every single day for the rest of your career, when somebody says, I gave your name out, I can't tell you how often I gave your name out will turn into a brainstorming session with the client or the referral source. You'll come up with an action plan for introduction that they will decide on, which means they're more likely to implement because they decided, yeah, that's comfortable for me. So now all I have to do is ensure accountability to the action plan. And you'll see a lot of those, I gave your name out, the behavior will change and they'll be focused on introductions going forward. I think in your industry specifically, it's the greatest opportunity that exists. I think if you guys had a clue how many times every single year your names are given to people that you never hear from, it'd probably make you sick. Whatever your business development goals are, you'd blow them out of the water if just that one problem was fixed and your clients, 81%, quit using that as a method of trying to refer. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5 and number 6 are people tell me they don't refer on purpose because they're too private or they feel referring is risky. You know, I referred somebody before all this COVID stuff and the market was at 30,000 and then it went down to 22 and my buddy lost 30% of his money and it was me that made the referral. I'll never do that again. That kind of stuff, those are your landmines. Those are the clients that their past experiences have psychologically led them to believe the upside of referring is not worth the risk that can come with taking the risk. And I've experienced the bad part of it. A lot of them have had experiences in the past. They're just not going to do it anymore. Good news is that's less than 20% of the people you work with. So it's not that big of a population. But if you use the language I gave you earlier, you can identify which clients feel that way so you don't talk to them about referrals. And finally, the least common thing that people tell me is that they intentionally do not refer because their own experience has been bad enough that they would never recommend it to somebody who's important to them. It's the least common. I'll bet I hear it less than 3% or 2% of the time. Now, granted, if I'm interviewing a client, it's because you picked them. So you probably cherry picked your best relationships. So it's a little bit safe. But overall, most clients, and keep in mind, in the investment industry, we interviewed through, 2008, 2009. We're interviewing now, through the turmoil of what's going on. People don't like when their account values go down, but they typically don't place that value on their advisor. Typically, about the advisor is about peace of mind, ongoing relationship, long-term relationship. So I rarely hear a client say they don't refer simply because they haven't had a referable experience. What I'd point out to you on this slide is 80 to 85% of my conversations with clients for 17 years, and we've interviewed clients who have 100 grand of investable assets and 100 million. We all over the world. It does not matter. 80 to 85% of our conversations happen in those first 4 bullet points. My advisor doesn't ask about it. I don't even have a clue who they would want to work with or what a good referral would look like. Even when I identify somebody I think needs help, I say the wrong stuff and I only understand 20% of what they do in the first place. And even if I get to the 1 yard line where somebody wants help, I'm using a method, name and phone number, that almost never leads to the person getting help. So you think about 80 to 85% of clients, it's not about their willingness to refer or not. It is simply about little things that are broken that if you simply had good conversations with clients on an ongoing basis, they would remedy themselves. So you never have to put yourself in that weird high pressure, I get paid in 2 ways. If you were having a wedding, give me the names of the 10 people that you would invite for any of that garbage. You don't have to do that. The hardest problem is establishing a client base in the first place. But then a client base who's loyal to you and finds you valuable. And I find most of the companies I've worked with over the years have already done all the hard stuff. This is the easiest stuff. It's simply going back and having simple conversations with clients. So the last 10 minutes here, what I want to do, guys, I want to walk you through. There are 5 characteristics that a client has to have to be a really effective and consistent source of referrals. If they have all 5 characteristics, they will refer frequently and consistently. If they are missing even 1 out of the 5, even no matter how much they love you, they can't be effective at referring. And in 17 years, I have never met a client that has more than 3 out of the 5 when we interview. So every single time I interview a client, there's an area that's got to be fixed. Okay, so number 1, the first characteristic, and obviously most important, is that a client has got to perceive the value you provided to them as exceeding the risk, however they define that, in referring you to somebody who is very important in their life. So they've got to see what you do is so valuable and the risk so low that they would confidently go out and say, I work with Gonzalo, you need to work with Gonzalo, and they're not scared of the outcome that might happen there. That sounds simple. However, truly, if you look at your top 30, 40 clients and say, am I confident that they value so much that they would take that risk? You're gonna have a ton of those clients that you think, maybe, I think so, but I'm not totally positive. The only way to know for sure is to gather feedback from that current client about their experience. So the training center, guys, is gonna tell you exactly what questions I would recommend that you ask your clients to learn their perspective of value, any area that you think you might be able to improve on, to make their experience better, and you can gain confidence in, does this client actually have the first characteristic of valuing what we do enough that they would take the risk? Because if the risk exceeds the value, they're never going to refer, okay? So good news, 80% of the people we interview have characteristic number 1. That's awesome. That just means they're willing to refer. The wheels fall off the wagon almost always in the next few categories. Number 2, if you want a client to be a good referral source, the second characteristic they have got to possess is a firm understanding of your value proposition and why your company is unique. What are the things that make you different than the guy that's a mile down or the gal that works at Merrill Lynch or whatever? Why are you different? They have to understand those key elements. And then specifically, they have got to have a better, more comprehensive understanding of all the services that you provide. We've got to solve this problem of clients understanding 2 out of the 10 things that you do. So again, the training center will walk you through specifically how do you cross-educate a current client to make sure they don't feel at all like they're being sold something, because they're not. They're simply being educated. It gives you some examples of maybe one-pagers that you could use to exemplify all the different things that you do. So steal those, use those however you want. But it's a critical component to having a client be a great advocate, because number one, they could think you're the greatest advisor in the history of the world. But if they understand 20% of your capabilities, that willingness to refer just completely was derailed by a lack of education. So number 2, we've got to fix that problem. Almost every single client I have ever met for 17 years has this problem. So number 2, make sure well-educated client, they understand your value prop and all the things that you do. Number 3, when I ask clients a simple question, is Gonzalo currently trying to grow his business? Meaning, when he woke up January 1st, was one of his main goals bringing more clients to the table? Half of the people I ask that question to are not clear. Clients, they'll say, man, he's real busy. Maybe. I'm not sure. You know, I have trouble even getting those guys on the phone. They're so busy and crazy. And so they have this perception that their advisor is either at capacity, above capacity. They're not sure. That will kill a client's motivation to refer if they think you're too busy to even accept a referral. But the other 50% that know you would want to help a client, when I ask them define when we walk into a crowded room what a good one looks like, they can't do it. So the third characteristic you've got to instill in these clients is that, again, it's a process. It never stops. Once a year, you got to re-educate. We do have capacity. Here are the kind of clients that we're taking on this year and the kind of clients we feel we help the best. And you've got to define those people in a way that allows them to identify those people out in the marketplace. So third characteristic, they got to know who you want to work with. Fourth characteristic is when they come across one of those people, they engage in a conversation and the person says something that lets that client know they need your help, they have got to understand the importance of making an introduction happen and stop doing the name and phone number thing. And the only way to get them to understand that is to have proactive conversations with your current clients about how important it is, if they ever come across somebody who needs help, that how important that introduction is to ensure they actually, the outcome is them getting help. So again, the training center breaks down exactly what's the conversation, how do you say it, proactively and reactively. So if a client says, I gave your name out the other day, how do you handle that situation? Tell you exactly what to say. And then the fifth and final, I'll go to the summary slide here. The fifth and final characteristic that I think has to exist between you and a client is that you've got to, with clarity, you have got to know who are my gold mines and who are my landmines, so that you gain complete confidence with those 80 or 90% that are gold mines to consistently talk about referrals in a way that's meaningful, proactive, not passive. So none of the, hey, keep me in mind if you know anybody, none of that stuff. You can hit it head on when you know there's no elephant of awkwardness in the room, because you've already gotten that elephant out by having the right conversation with your client. So the training center will tell you that fifth category, how do you identify gold mines and landmines? So you can see, guys, if any one of these characteristics is not in place with an existing client, it derails their ability to be a great referral source. And I've never met a client that has more than 3 out of the 5. So what I do, and then we'll wrap here, I just want to show you so we developed a training center that Kathy will give you where to email to get the usernames and passwords. But inside of this training center is a ton of videos, a training guide full of scripts. How do you work with CPAs and attorneys more effectively? We've done a ton of work in that area. A copy of my book, a digital copy of my book, and then a lot of other webinars that we've done on this topic. But the bottom line is the training center is going to show you how do you structure a conversation with the client to ensure that when they walk out of that interaction, they possess the 5 characteristics that we know they have to consistently refer. So number 1, you're going to get feedback. It's going to tell you exactly what to ask and say. Number 2, you're going to re-educate, cross-educate. Going to tell you how to do that. Number 3, you're going to define. We do have capacity to help more clients, and here is specifically who we're looking to help over the next 12 months. And number 4, the conversation about should you come across those people, how important it is to make sure an introduction occurs so they get help. And then number 5, how do you have the gold mine landmine conversation? It walks you specifically through the structure of that conversation. And guys, I can tell you that the firms that we've worked with over the decade and a half will tell you that number 1, implementing the strategies within this training center are very simple. It's not time consuming. You just got to spend time getting comfortable with the language and everything. Number 2, it's very professional. You're never going to be put in a spot where you feel like you're looking like a desperate sales dude trying to rip names out of your clients' cell phones. Number 3, it's going to be incredibly effective. The referral activity of our clients goes up on average about 150% once they implement over the year before, which is pretty substantial. But number 4, I think the cooler thing is it's pretty cool to be able to engage your clients in that kind of feedback and learn the true value proposition of their firm. There's something really awesome about empowering clients to be honest with you, because client retention, you guys work so hard to get a good client. I feel like firms need to work equally hard to make sure that client has a raving fan experience and then is well educated to make sure they don't just stay a client, but they clone themselves through a referral process. And this will help you accomplish all of that stuff. So Kathy, I'll turn it over to you, but I want to thank Agency One. You guys should, number 1, I've had a ton of respect. I've known these guys for a long time, ton of respect for the agency. You guys will all have a license to the training center, which is going to save you a couple $100 up front and whatever it is, $50 a month. And you'll get unlimited access to this. So if referrals is something you want to get better at, this is going to be a very, very valuable resource to you. So thank Agency One for putting that together for you. So Kathy, anything I didn't cover?
Dan, thank you so much. This was fabulous. We've gotten a number of terrific comments while you were giving this presentation, thanking us for putting this together. We do have a question, and I would like to remind everyone, if you've got any questions that you'd like Dan to address, please feel free to type them into the question box and we will address them. One of the questions that came up, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, is this a subject that can be implemented on our website? So I guess what the advisor is asking is, would you recommend having a dedicated part of the advisor website on asking for referrals and talking about their desire to get referrals?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend there's 2 different components to me for a website that to me makes a good website. Number 1, I would definitely have an element on the website that conveys that you are accepting new clients and we're happy to help. I don't think there's anything engaging enough on a website that you could put that would make a client. First of all, most clients don't go to a website of their advisor unless they're logging into some portal for e-money or something like that. So I don't know that there's something engaging like that you can put on there, but I'll tell you, those characteristics that I brought up, cross-education, what are all of our services that we provide, who do we serve, having a clear definition of the people that benefit the most from what you do. Those are things that, oddly enough, a lot of websites are so vague that I don't even understand what the firm does. So I would make sure I'd go back to those characteristics and ask myself, do we convey all that on our website? Nothing beats face-to-face interaction with the client, or in today's world, Zoom to Zoom interaction with the client for actually deepening relationships and earning referrals.
Terrific. Thank you, Dan. I don't see any other questions that have come in. So once again, I want to thank you for your time. This has been extremely informative, and I know that our advisors really appreciated the topic, and I'm hoping that everybody's going to use what they've learned to, um, you know, address the last 6 months of the year to increase their sales, their client bases, and to help everybody get their year back on track. For everybody that is looking for access to the product offerings that Dan has graciously offered, if you will email Lisa Mitchell, lisa@agency1.net, or give Lisa a call, 301-803-7504, or obviously reach out to myself or Gonzalo, we will make sure that you are given the password and the username that you need to access all of this phenomenal material. The one thing that we certainly hope is that the folks that are going to be reaching out to us are working with Agency One, and if you decided to get introduced to Agency One by way of this phenomenal webinar from Dan Allison, please look forward to having a conversation with Gonzalo or myself about how Agency One can better help serve your needs. Some housekeeping. We have a very exciting webinar next week. It's going to be Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And we are going to do another deep dive on the Annexus products, but this time we are going to focus specifically on the Securian Balanced Growth Accumulator, and we are going to talk about premium financing. We have secured an advanced markets attorney from Securian, a representative from one of the top premium financing lenders in the country, and also one of the vice presidents from Annexus to lead this webinar with Agency One. It is going to be a question and answer. So we're going to do a deep dive on premium financing using the Securian Balanced Growth Accumulator product. I know that you're going to find that interesting. We've not focused on premium financing yet in one of our weekly webinars, so we're very excited to bring that to you, and we hope that you will join us for that. The invitation for that webinar will be going out in the next 2 days. And again, if you have any questions in that regard, please reach out to Gonzalo or myself. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank Dan Allison for his time and thank everybody for their attention during this webinar. We hope everybody continues to stay safe and productive. Summer has just started, so we hope everybody's going to be able to enjoy their summer. And we look forward to speaking with you at Agency One. Thank you very much. And Lisa, we are over. Take care.